Hello, I hope everyone is doing well. Today I'm going to be showing you a quick 6-part hip health routine that you can do anywhere. I do some variation of all of these exercises pretty much every day. I've been doing so for a good number of years now. I think they're all natural human movements that anyone should be able to do. And basically, if you're not sure about it, start now, move slow, and think about how much better your hips are going to move if you continue doing this for a week, a month, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years continuously. It's best to keep moving. Now, of course, these exercises need to be adjusted for your own level of ability. So if you see me doing something and you're not sure about it, move slow, do less range of motion, try to distill the concept and figure out what you need to do to make it challenging for yourself. I don't know how it feels like in your body, so I can't tell you that. I'm doing my best to give you different variations and to try to explain the concepts, but again, ultimately it's up to you to modify so you can get the most out of it. That being said, let's get into the exercises. Okay, so the first exercise we're going to start with is one that I call the open close. This is just simple hip flexion extension, and it's going to isolate that hip joint. So keeping the knees straight, feet a little bit wider than hip width. I'm just going to push the hips out. I can focus on the glutes to push out, or I can just lean the chest back. One thing that I'm not doing here is I'm not letting the lower back go. So I'm keeping the midsection straight as I go forward. And then as I go backwards, I can bend my knees a little bit, but the idea is I'm just taking my butt and I'm pushing it back as far as I can, and then I'm going to combine these two exercises. I don't have to be super strict with how I do it necessarily, just figure out what feels good in your body. Again, if you are new to movement, you might want to take a smaller range of motion. Then if you want to get a little bit further, you can soften the knees, really push the hips out, and then really push the butt back. Here I like to go side to side as well because I get a really good glute stretch if I kind of twist and push into it with the right angle. But this is just exploration. The general concept here is hips forwards, hips backwards. Don't have to be too strict. Just do what feels good, get it done. Next exercise is one that I call around the world, but a lot of the comments in my Facebook video also mentioned SpongeBob saying, "Bring it around town."
Now it's time to bring it around town. Bring it around town.
This is similar to the forwards and backwards, but now it's going to be a circular movement. So the way I'm trying to do it is like this. Imagine my center line. Right now my hips are aligned with that. I'm going to push the hips out in one direction, and I'm going to keep pushing the hip as far as I can away from that center line. And then naturally, of course, the chest and the head are going to tilt away to maintain balance. You can keep the knees straight, but generally I find it's better not to be too strict with it. Like, you can keep the knees straight, but you can bend them when you need. You know, if you do like 10, 15 rotations on each side and really explore those weird feeling tight spots, this is a fantastic movement. This is like classic old school gym class warm-up, and it's classic for a reason. This is a fantastic move. So the next movement is one that I call the Windshield Wiper, and this is going to focus more on hip rotation. There's a few different ways to do this. The two main ways that I usually do it, I'll show you now. I do one sitting on my butt with my hands on the floor, and basically I'm just folding one leg out and one leg in. The second way that I'll do it is with my hands free. So now there's a little bit more movement, a little bit more of an active flexibility component. Now another thing that you can play with if you really want to isolate the hip rotation is see how far you can get with both of your butts on the floor, right? So for me to get all the way over, I'm on one hip bone right now, but if I'm on both sit bones, can't move quite as far. So this is also a way to kind of see what your active isolated hip rotation looks like in that context, and then you can add the continuation. If this is too difficult, you can lean back a little further, right? You can even do this, try not to get my back itchy. You can even do it laying on your back to allow for easier rotation if you're feeling a little bit tight getting here. But yeah, these are the two ways that I typically do it. If you do like 15 to 25 reps at a moderate pace, start to feel pretty good. And yeah, this would be the first level for me, and then this would be the second level. These are the Windshield Wipers. Really fantastic movement for getting that hip rotation in. The next movement is one that I call the Cossack Rotation. I do actually have a full tutorial on this one that I made a few years ago, so I'm not going to go into super detail explaining this, but essentially this is what we call the Cossack squat. You can do flat foot, you can do up on the toes, you can do foot turned in, foot turned up. Explore. So part one is switching back and forth. Part two is rotating to a forward lunge, so I can get a bit of external rotation piriformis, and I can get a little bit of hip extension as well. Switching, rotating. So I usually have 3 levels of this that I do. The first level is hands on the floor, so I can give myself extra support whenever I need. The second level is no hands on the floor. So now there's a little bit more of an active flexibility, a bit of a strength component. And then the third level is strict. So I'm trying to tuck the pelvis forward, and I'm trying to keep my chest vertical. And this way it's a lot more strict with how I move the legs. But you can see what's happening. There's hip rotation involved. There's leg strength holding me up. And I'm going through groin flexibility, and I'm going through that forward lunge as well. And as always, I encourage exploration. Best thing you can do is if you can just take a few minutes and explore instead of doing a bunch of robotic repetitions. So that is the Cossack rotation. Next exercise is one that I call the active leg circle, but depending on who you train with, you might call this cars, you might call it a rond de jambe. It's all the same move. Basically, you're lifting your leg up as high as you can. You can use something to help with your balance. Base leg should be pretty solid, and you're making a circle with your leg while maintaining a lift as high as you can. There's a few ways to do it. One way you can do it is completely strict, so really lock the hip, no excess movements. You're keeping that knee as high as possible. You're not twisting. This would be more of a hip isolation, and it's a very strict way to do it, and there's a lot of benefits from that. Another way that I'll do it sometimes is kind of the opposite. I'll allow my chest to lean away from the leg, and this way I can play with getting the leg a little bit higher, which is good. We can do extension. That's good if you're doing something like kicks, right? Because your chest isn't going to stay in the same place. A lot of times you're going to lean a little bit when you do these kicks. So this way you can build that active flexibility. Here's a really strong glute contraction. Here it is medial hip, right? And then here is hip flexor. And I'm just drawing circles. Obviously you go as high or low as you can. So in ballet, they'll even do this. Right? If you can only lift it this high, that's fine. You lift it as high as you're able to, and as long as you feel your hips working, then it's doing something. So those are the active leg circles, or whatever you want to call them. And the final exercise that we're going to do, it's actually going to be a 3-part exercise, and I do have a full-length tutorial on this one as well, so I'm not going to go into it super detail. We're going to add some dynamic flexibility, so I would actually save this for the end of the session, because these are movements that if you're not used to, you'll want to do them when your hip is already a little bit warm. But essentially, you're just going to swing. Make sure, right, you can grab something for balance. Make sure when you're doing these forward swings that your foot stays flexed, because you don't want to smash your toe in the floor. And just be aware, right? You can start small and and just swing a little bit. And then when you feel better, you can go a little bit higher, a little bit higher. I'm not being super strict with the movement, but when I'm doing this forward one, I try to lead with the toes in the front, and I try to lead with the heel in the back, and I try to keep my chest pretty upright. And I'm just swinging. This is the forwards and backwards swing. The second version of the swing is the sideways. So I try to lead with my toes both directions. So internal rotation, external rotation. Again, it might look like this for you in the beginning, right? Show you different angles so you can see the foot rotation. That's okay. Start low, start slow, but don't go this slow because then you're not getting the benefit of dynamic flexibility. Give yourself a little bit of speed and gradually you can go higher. There's another version I've seen dancers do where they keep the knee bent and they do something like that, which is also cool variation. Typically I'm just doing the straight leg one. So that's number 2. And then number 3, watch your toes. You're gonna swing back. So for this one you can lean a little bit forward. Again, give yourself something to help with balance. I can turn out a little bit here, but my main focus is still leading with the heel and just driving that leg up. Again, it might look something like this. If you're new to the exercise, I've been doing these movements for a long time, so I can go a little bit faster and a little bit higher than you may be able to if you're just starting out. So take it slow, be gradual, but these movements are really good for you. This is a good variation I like too, where I do a straight leg and then a heel kick on the way back. Moving fast is not bad for you. Life sometimes comes at you in a dynamic and ballistic way, so you want to be prepared for it. Just, you know your own body, so you take it at the height and the speed that challenges you for that day, and then you gradually increase. But yeah, leg swings, fantastic. Dynamic flexibility I think is really underrated. Again, this is the old school gym class warm-up. I think we should be bringing it back. I had to go inside to film the conclusion of this video because the lawnmower man showed up, always on time, always at the right time. But anyway, really simple hip routine, 6 easy movements, adapt them to your own abilities, do them every day. I do some variation of all of these exercises on a daily basis, and I've been doing so for many years, and my hips feel good. I was at an open gym the other day throwing some kicks, and then somebody asked me, what does it feel to have, what does it feel like to have hips that move like that? And I said, it feels normal. This is how hips should move. If your hips don't move like this, make the effort. It's not going to happen overnight, but hips are really important. People that have knee issues, that have back issues, a lot of that comes from improper hip control. So make sure you know how to use and move your hips in different directions. And this is just a really easy, high bang for buck routine that can help you do that. So if you enjoyed this video, if it's useful for you, let me know. Give me a like, share, thumbs up. Subscribe. You can check out my ebooks and online coaching and workshops and all of that. And let me know what else you'd like to see on this channel, and I'll see what I can do to get it done.